Michael Schmidt recently lost his legal appeal to overturn his 2011 conviction for selling raw milk. Now the dairy farmer from West Grey, Ontario, is pledging to take his case to the highest court in the land. Will there be a time when Ontario will see raw milk brought to market? Joining us now to help answer that, Art Hill. He's a professor and chair in the Department of Food Science at the University of Guelph. Art, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming into TVO tonight.
Good to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Here are just some of the bare facts of the background that we want to share with our viewers. Raw milk is defined as fluid milk obtained from an animal, for example, a cow or a doe, which is a female goat, or a ewe, a female sheep, that has not undergone any heat treatment. How long has this been going on? Since 1938. Ontario law has prohibited the sale of raw, that is to say, unpasteurized or unsterilized milk for human consumption since 1938. Premier Mitch Hepburn did it, actually. So here's the first question. Why is it that way?
Because generally, we consider raw milk to be unsafe. So if you go back to the illnesses that led to the ban of raw milk, there were things like tuberculosis and Q fever. And then there were a second generation of pathogens emerging in the 70s, 80s. We became more concerned about Salmonella and E. coli and then Listeria. So a long list of Latin names that have been emerging over the years and continuing to emphasize that raw milk is an inherently unsafe product.
Do you agree with that? It's inherently unsafe?
I do agree with that. Although it's important, that like any food product, that we evaluate raw milk with an appropriate set of, we would call it risk analysis, do a proper risk assessment. And I would say that risk assessment has been done. But the issue is still there, because like really any risk question, it's never 100%, one side or the other. And so, the arguments in favor of raw milk, first of all, tend to downplay the risks, and so we can have a long conversation about the true value of the risks. And if you emphasize the benefits, with all types of risks, we tend to underestimate the risks if we perceive particular benefits associated with the particular behavior
what's
or
the benefit?
product. The perceived benefits, and maybe some real benefits, the perceived benefits of raw milk relative to pasteurized milk, there's a list, but probably the most important one that we hear frequently is that the pasteurization process, and to some extent the homogenization process that usually goes along with pasteurization, removes some of the nutrients, denatures proteins, maybe the perception at least that it decreases some of the protein value, destroys some vitamins. So that argument has been there for a long time. Other claims are that some people are intolerant to lactose, and there's the perception that raw milk is less likely to an individual is less likely to be intolerant to lactose in raw milk versus pasteurized milk. So it's largely about the nutritional factors that are believed to be better in raw milk, or conversely destroyed or decreased in pasteurized milk.
My hunch is most people in the province of Ontario only want to drink pasteurized milk. They think raw milk is unsafe, but there are people out there who want to drink raw milk still. How come?
Yes, that's certainly true. Again, I think it's because some of us put more weight on the benefits and perhaps are willing to accept more risk. And there's certainly different populations as well. So the risk isn't uniform across all populations.
Right. Well, the risk is getting sick. How many people have gotten sick drinking raw milk over the years?
I can't give you a total number, but certainly, if you compare the risk from consuming raw milk on one side versus pasteurized milk on the other, you are many times more likely, probably in the order of 1,000 or more times more likely, to get sick from consuming raw milk than from consuming pasteurized milk.
And yet some people want to do it anyway.
And yet some people want to do it anyway.
Have you tried it?
Well, yes, I actually have a farm background. I grew up on a dairy farm, and I have consumed many, many liters of raw milk
But not
over
recently?
the course of growing up, but not recently.
How does it taste?
Actually, you know, because I grew up on raw milk, I have always a little bit disliked pasteurized milk. I still don't really like that you know, the cooked flavor that's almost unavoidable in pasteurized milk.
You like the sweet taste of raw milk, the sweeter taste.
It is a sweeter taste, and particularly, you know, if it's quite fresh, it does have a different taste.
Well, you know, our viewers are going to look at you right now, and they don't know what I know, which is that you're 58 years old, almost. And
It's the raw milk for sure.
I was going to say, if drinking raw milk, you look this good at 58, maybe we should all be drinking raw milk. You think?
I think not. I really do think that the risk is inappropriately high, especially you know, for vulnerable groups like anyone who's immunocompromised or young children. You know, there's a number of cases where young children have been infected with E. coli or 15787 from raw milk, had to have kidney transplants, and you know, you don't wish that on any family. So yes, in my view, the risks are too high, especially for those groups, young children, older people, immunocompromised. The risk, in my view, is too high.
Raw milk advocates, such as the farmer Michael Schmidt, whom you, I gather, have not yet met, but will soon at a conference at your university, says that pasteurization has led to milk allergies. Is there any scientific evidence to back up that claim?
Very little. That claim has been out there for a long time, going back into the 60s. One of the claims relative to that is that pasteurization, like which I mentioned, usually includes homogenization. Homogenization disrupts that's the process where fat globules in the milk are broken down to very small particles. So the cream doesn't rise to the top. So it keeps the milk stable. So there's that process dislodges some, it's called xanthine oxidase, an enzyme that's associated with the fat globule. And there's a belief that if that enzyme is no longer attached to the globule, it causes or enhances inflammatory reactions in the body, and then adds to chronic diseases like asthma, aggravates allergies, even heart disease, diabetes have all been blamed on this particular reaction. But as I say, it's been out there for a very long time. There's been a number of studies. There's a pretty good study out of Berkeley, for example. A number of studies over the years, and there's really nothing, you know, nothing conclusive to say, hey, there really is an impact here.
Okay, let's find out what other places do on this. As we suggested off the top, it was Premier Mitch Hepburn in 1938 who initially outlawed the sale of raw milk, said you've got to pasteurize if you want to sell it. What do other provinces or other countries do about this?
So in Ontario, actually nationally now in Canada, as of 1991, there is a ban on raw milk, at least interprovincially, and at the moment all Canadian provinces also ban the sale of raw milk. So Canada
is this across provincial lines or even within the province?
Within. So intra-provincial, all provinces ban the sale of raw milk, and there is now, since 1991, a ban on inter-provincial sale of raw milk, unless it's to a licensed processor who is licensed to handle, process raw milk.
How about, you know anything about the U.S. or Europe?
In the U.S., there is, the U.S. is very similar to us. There's an interprovincial ban, but there are about half of U.S. states that still allow the sale of raw milk on a limited basis
Within their state,
within the state,
but not across state lines.
but not across state lines.
Okay, understood. Michael Schmidt's been at this for a very long time.
Yes.
And he's continuing his legal case, even though he lost the most recent one. And I'm curious, you're going to be at a conference with him not too long from now,
Yes.
and he's going to tell you that you're crazy for preventing him from doing what is natural and, in his view, beautiful.
Yes.
How are you going to react to that?
I may not get the opportunity in the context of the symposium, but my reaction would be, again, that, based on the the best risk assessment that we can do, and it's been done over and over again in many regions, that in my view, and I would say in the view of most people, that the risk is too high.
Okay, but if he wants to sell to a willing customer at his farm, should the rest of us care?
Yes, I think the rest of us should care, but it raises a really important issue, and that is the science can be very, very strong, but we can never really only apply the science, kind of in a vacuum and isolation from all the other factors. And that's actually one of the things we want to address at this symposium on April 22. And actually, if any of your viewers want to come and join us, it's open to the public. Just go to foodscience.ca and look up raw milk. It'll be there.
Okay.
But what we're trying to do at this conference is not so much debate the raw milk issue, but look at raw milk as a case study for the process of science to policy. So there's a lot of science that says raw milk is high risk, therefore do not consume. But there's also these other, socio-economic factors that come into play. So why shouldn't a farmer from his farm be able to take advantage of an immediate economic opportunity? Particularly if he can say, there's never been any illness associated with my product. My family's been drinking this milk for 3 generations on this farm, and nobody ever got sick that we know of.
So can you
why
imagine-
can't I sell it?
Precisely. So can you imagine a day in the province, despite the fact it's been outlawed for more than 75 years, where this will be legal?
I don't think in the foreseeable future. However, it could happen. If it does happen, it will be with clear restrictions, clear guidelines. I can imagine a couple of scenarios where it might be permitted based on the U.S. experience in a number of states.
Meaning farmer sells it at his farm only type of thing?
So yes, so that is one possibility. The other possibility, in fact, they may go together, but the other possibility is where the province would impose very rigid restrictions, everything from animal health monitoring, particularly udder health, to control point type analysis or food safety management within the production facility, as well as in the milk house and the processing. A lot of analyses, very frequent product analysis, extensive and detailed environmental monitoring, all of the above. As means to reduce the risk.
Right. Would that process render the finished product much more expensive than pasteurized milk?
It would, absolutely.
Okay. However, you never know. I hear the agriculture minister in Ontario today is on really good terms with the premier of the province. It's a little joke. It's the
Yes.
same person. So
Yes.
you never know. Maybe if the ag minister lobbies the premier, it'll happen. Art Hill, professor and chair in the Department of Food Science at the University of Guelph. Good of you to come in tonight to TVO and help us out with this. Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.